It is town hall week, which means we're talking a little bit about a town hall meeting and how you can have your voice heard at town hall meetings and, be heard on any number of issues, anything that's important to you, right? Um, I think one thing that's often lost in the political discussion, especially today, is that at the end of the day, elected officials are, you know, under your purview, right? We elect elected officials, they work for us. And so it's incredibly important that when we have something to say, when we have thoughts and opinions on the issues of the day, that our voices are heard by these elected officials. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can go about reaching your elected official, whether it is calling their office or using your vote at the ballot box and voting for or against them or policies that they support. Right. Um, our democracy has a lot of tools available for you to have your voice heard. But one of the most sort of direct ways for you to have an impact and for you to have your voice heard by your elected officials is called a town hall meeting. And so there are a few sort of steps that um, you need to take before you're ready to just walk into the town hall meeting, right? Um, the way I've got it written out is there are about 4 or 5 steps to being ready to go to a town hall meeting and to have the best opportunity to have your voice be heard and make your point as clearly as possible, right? But first, let's answer the question: what is a town hall meeting? A town hall meeting is essentially a public meeting where members of the public can go and ask questions of or share their opinions directly with elected officials or community leaders, right? These things happen both in private sector, whether it's a business or, a company, or in the public sector, elected officials, members of the government. That's mostly what we'll be focusing on because that's sort of what we do. Um, but if you've ever been to a question and answer panel, whether it's at, a convention or, a movie screening, anytime somebody sits there and takes questions from the audience, that's effectively a town hall. Um, and it can happen anywhere. The name town hall is more just kind of the name of the meeting more than it is a specific location where it needs to take place. Right. And so, uh, that's what a town hall is. I think the benefit of it is, like we talked about, you have the opportunity to have your voice heard directly, right? When you call and you leave a message at your, congressman's office or your senator's office, that sort of gets compiled into a report, which is then reported upwards to your elected official, and they get a broad picture of what people on the ground are saying, right? But when you go to a town hall meeting, you have the opportunity to share your story specifically and have your voice be heard directly by that elected official. Um, and so it's just a little bit different, right? But it's super important that people know that this is an option. And, in a world where there is so much information out there, this is one of those things that I think you hear people say, you have to go to your town hall meeting and, have your voice be heard, but you may not know what that is. And it may seem like a silly question to ask. So this is very 101, hopefully there to help somebody who's hearing a lot about this, maybe wants to participate, but isn't quite sure how, right? And so the very first step here is to find your elected official, right? Before you can go ask a question or share your voice with an elected official, you need to know who that person is. And so, boom, a really great, and you can see behind the curtain here my 10 hours of We Shop channel music for the background of the video. But you go on this website, usa.gov/elected officials, and this is not going to provide you everything, but at least on the federal level, you will have some answers. And so all you do is you type in your address, right? Your street address, city, state, zip, and then you click Find My Elected Officials. This is the address for the Bellagio. And so hopefully that works out. But if you were living at the Bellagio, these would be your elected officials. And so you can see federal officials. You've got Donald Trump as the president, J.D. Vance as the vice president, Catherine Cortez Masto as one of our senators, Jackie Rosen as our other senator, and then Representative Dina Titus, because the Bellagio is in Nevada's 1st congressional district. And so that those are your members of Congress, those are your senators, and of course your president and vice president. And so when you expand this here, you get some information in terms of contact info, right? And so there's a phone number for their DC office. There's a website that you can go on, Facebook, Twitter, all options that are available to you. And that's just for outreach, not at a town hall, but just so you have it. And you can see that all the way sort of up and down the ticket here. And so you see we've got state officials all the way, from the governor to the state Supreme Court justices. You've got your state assembly member. Here it's Howard Watts, state senator Fabian Dugnate. You've got a lot of great information here at your fingertips, and it's very quick to get it done. It's, as long as it takes you to type your address, you'll have the info of your elected officials. Local officials takes you all the way down to county level, right? And so you can see that you've got your sheriff, you've got your Clark County assessor, Clark County recorder, right? If you have very strong feelings about the Clark County recorder's office, now you know who to reach out to. But you have a lot of different options for reaching your elected officials, and you have all of this information available in terms of their contact info. But once you've established who your elected officials are, sort of a next best step is going to be to research sort of what their town hall situation looks like. Are they having one soon? Where's it going to be? But actually, let's sort of switch the order here. I have that as number 2. Let's switch number 3 to number 2. Is you have to decide what you want to say, right? And so you've got your elected official. I think a very important step in this process is determining what level of the ballot are they at, right? We looked and we saw that there were federal elected officials, there are state elected officials, there are local elected officials. The things that you bring to a town hall with, say, your United States senator are going to look a little different than what you bring to the table with the Clark County recorder, right? And so when you are putting together your thoughts, you want to make sure that the issue that you're bringing to the table is something that can be addressed by that elected official. For example, you wouldn't necessarily want to, bring something about, let's say, the taxes on the Raiders stadium to somebody who's a federal elected official, because that's more county purview, right, or state purview. You wouldn't want to bring something about Clark County School District to somebody who's an elected official in Washoe County, right? And so understanding what question you want to ask first is going to go a long way in making sure that you can make the most of your time and get sort of the best response from that elected official. And so a good place to start, though, is what issues and causes are you passionate about, right? If you have a specific question about an elected official's stance on an issue, that's a great place to go. If you don't know where, your county commissioner stands on a new project that's slated to be built in your neighborhood, right? That's a question that you can ask solely for information, right? If you're trying to persuade them to see it your way, let's say there's a project in your neighborhood that you don't necessarily like, and you're worried they're going to vote to approve it, you can go and you can say all of the reasons that you think that they shouldn't, right? And that would be more to persuade, right? Alternatively, if they've taken a vote that you don't like and you want to make sure that they know that, that's another thing you can do, where you can say, hey, listen, you voted to approve this, 70-floor skyscraper in my quiet little neighborhood. I don't love that. And, you should not have done that, right? And I think the way that I've sort of boiled it down is trying to figure out, are you there for accountability, persuasion, or information, right? You can get information by asking a question. You can try to persuade them to see things your way, or you can kind of hold them accountable for votes that you didn't necessarily agree with. And all of those are valid, right? Another thing to note is try to write down what you want to say. I've been to a few different town hall meetings where people have a vague idea of what they want to say, but they don't have like pre-prepared notes. And so what happens is they kind of provide a lot of context and they get lost in the context, and they sort of lose not only the crowd, but they lose the speaker, right? And so it makes it harder for them to focus and answer. Additionally, if your situation's very specific, right? So if I'm having a problem with some government thing that, is very specific to me, odds are good that elected official is going to say something to the effect of, I don't have all the materials, but follow up with this member of my staff, with all your information. and we'll do our best to get you squared away and kind of follow up on this, right? And so A-OK to like get up there and put it on their radar, like, hey, I'm having this problem with this agency. Um, it's a little complicated to get into right now, but I wanted to put it on your radar. Who should I get in touch with from your office and like follow up with, right? Totally fair, reasonable way to handle it, but just a thing to know. Um, and so once you've sort of decided what you want to say, you want to find the town hall meeting, right? And there are a few different places that you can do that. I would highly recommend going on the elected officials' official website, right? And so that's their .gov. And so for like Jackie Rosen, for example, it's rosen.senate.gov. For Catherine Cortez Masto, it's Cortez Masto, all together one word, .senate.gov. And then for the House, susielee.house.gov, horsford.house.gov, amadei.house.gov, titus.house.gov. And I will just copy and paste those all into chat. And so if you're here and you don't have that, that's that. But I would also recommend, that you take a moment and just Google for that information if you need it. If you Google the name of your senator after you found it on that finder, you'll be able to get pretty much everything you need to get squared away and to find that website. But on that website, often in the news section, they'll have any sort of press releases or information related to, upcoming events, upcoming town halls. Sign up for the mailing list while you're there. Their .gov shouldn't be spammy, right? It should just be sort of the information that they're getting to you in their official capacity as a member of Congress, as a senator, as a commissioner, whatever. That information shouldn't be shared with the campaign side. And so you should be able to get just kind of updates on what's happening in your area, what they're working on for you, and how they can sort of help you out, right? So always sign up for the mailing list for your elected officials. It's a great way to know what's going on in your community, but it's also a great way to know about events like these, right? Another thing you might want to look out for is the elected official campaign website. Obviously, know that that serves a different function. And so events that are posted on the campaign website are campaign events. And so kind of a different vibe, but some of those are town halls. And for elected officials who are currently in office, a lot of times what they're hoping to do is to sort of win your vote and draw you over to their side of the aisle. And so, that level of accountability can be there if they're like a really upstanding person and they want to, bring people in and persuade you, but also understand that it's possible that it may be sort of like not so much the place, right? There could be a less friendly crowd than a general information town hall, right? If you're coming with some contentious debate. But that's a thing to consider, and it's a way to check. It's a place to check if you're looking for town halls. Warning on that, though, only sign up for the mailing list if you are prepared to get 10,000 emails from whether it's Nancy Pelosi or Donald Trump Jr. or any number of these folks, right? Like, this is where you're going to get peppered with the fundraising emails. And so I would say be risk averse when it comes to giving out your email address in campaign world, because it'll go to one campaign and then to another, and you will never escape. And so a thing to consider, but something to keep in mind, right? Another thing worth trying is using Google or a search engine. And that sounds trivial, right? Like, hey, have you tried Googling it? But using Google, but with filters, right? And so when you go on Google, you can type in your search query, and then below the search bar, there's a section that says tools, and you can filter to results that have been sort of updated within the last month. And so when you're looking for something like a town hall, you don't want to necessarily find a town hall from, 2018, for example. And so you can filter it to results from the last month, 6 months, and hopefully find something a little bit more recent. And that'll give you only the stuff that's helpful, because it can be hard to find this stuff if it's not posted on the official government website. And I think that that's a really important step in this process here. Alternatively, if you can't really find anything with any of these, just don't be afraid to call and ask, right? Just pick up the phone and dial their office, their local office, their, DC office, whatever works best for you. Getting on the phone and just saying, hey, I had some questions, or I had a question or a comment, are you guys having a town hall in district anytime soon? Like, when can I expect there to be a public opportunity to, meet the senator, right? And also while you're on the phone, leave a message, right? Have your voice recorded in that way as well. But don't be afraid to call and ask for that information if you truly can't find it online. Um, when it's actually time for the town hall, and if folks are getting ready to join in the game, uh, thanks for hanging out. We're going to run a few minutes over on this, but um, if you're getting ready to attend the town hall, some things to think about is you want to get there early, right? Because like you have something that's very important to you that you want to have your voice heard, a lot of other folks are also going to come to the table wanting to have their voice heard by their elected official. And so by getting there early, you sort of have the opportunity to scope out the situation and see, like what's going on when it comes to how the questions are being picked, right? Do you sign up on a list? Do you just get in line at a microphone? What's the process for that, right? A good way to sort of make sure that you have that information is to find a member of staff who's at the town hall, see if you have to check in, see if they have like a table set up, and just ask, say, hey, I've got a question I would really like to get asked. What's the best way to make sure that I have a shot to ask my question, right? And they'll almost always be happy to help, right? And so, well worth getting there early, scouting the place out, making sure that you've got a place in line and you're doing what you need to do to have your question be on the list of questions that gets gotten to. Um, and I think that that's something that a lot trips up a lot of people is they get there right at the posted time, and then there's already a line of 50 people who have questions, and you get a lot of people who came prepared, but you also get a lot of people who come to the town hall and are sort of thinking it through as they're talking it, right? Um, which is okay because that's not unlike how we do this stream, so no worries there. Um, but yeah, so I would say definitely get there early, look for the sign-in table, and ask for directions from staff. What's the best way for me to get my question answered today? And I think that that's going to be a really good situation. And as long as you get there early enough, how early sort of depends on how busy you think it's going to be. Back in like 2018, when everybody was going to town halls and it was like a really kind of hot ticket to get to your local elected officials town hall. That was sort of tricky because there were so many people. But in that case, it's I think a different vibe these days. So get there as early as you think you'll need to. And then sort of alternative means is how I have this labeled. But there are some elected officials who just don't like doing town halls, right? Or they're avoiding doing town halls. And it's, for any number of reasons, any number of places, any, different parties, whatever, some elected officials don't love the heat. And I can't necessarily blame them if I were an elected official and, I was maybe not doing my job as best as I could. I would be a little nervous too. But ultimately, it is their responsibility to be accountable to their constituents and to answer questions. And so let's say you have a question you've been trying to get answered and you can't get it answered and they're not having town halls. You might think, well, I need to talk to my elected official. Do I have to fly to DC to do it? Maybe, but maybe not. And so some things from my experience, if you're trying to get a hold of your elected official that you might look into are setting up Google alerts, right? So you set up Google alerts for things like, let's say it's let's say it's the John Kennedy town hall, right? And you want to know when he'll be having one, but you don't want to have to Google it every day. You go on, you Google Alerts, and it's right there, first result. You set up a Google alert for John F. Kennedy Town Hall, right? Or you set up a Google alert for something like, John F. Kennedy speaking engagement, luncheon, Chamber of Commerce, keynote speaker. Use that elected official's name with sort of events that they're likely to attend. And as soon as new results get posted, you'll get an email with a link to whatever that result is. A lot of that information isn't necessarily going to be what you're looking for. Sometimes it'll be news coverage. Sometimes it'll be sort of old stuff or, YouTube videos or Twitter posts or whatever. But you will often find that elected officials who aren't doing town halls are doing other sort of smaller, more limited events, or even events where unfortunately you do have to pay like 10 or 20 bucks to get in. Whether that's worth the cost of admission to you is entirely up to you. But sometimes just getting in the same room as these elected officials and getting that, minute or two with them in the meet and greet portion, or just like before or after the event, is worth it, right? Because if you're struggling to get in touch with a federal agency or a state agency or whatever, and you can't get results, often that elected official is going to be a really great path to finding a solution, right? And so, you know, uh, setting up that Google alert for those things, right? For the, John F. Kennedy luncheon, John F. Kennedy Chamber of Commerce, John F. Kennedy keynote speaker, whatever your elected official's name is, right? Like figuring out just like what public events they're physically going to be at and just showing up will get you where you need to be 99% of the time. And of course, this is all just to have your voice heard. This is all just to make sure that at the end of the day, these elected officials are truly working for you and hearing your voice, because that is what this democracy is all about, right? It's a representative democracy. And these people are elected to represent your interests in whatever legislative body it is they find themselves in. And so you're well within your rights to try to have your voice heard by them and to speak your mind. And so I hope this is helpful. I've been going for, let's see here, 25 minutes. That's a lot of info about town halls. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to throw us on a quick break, and other people are going to talk as well. And so hopefully you'll stick around for some Mario Party Superstars, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's everything you need to know about town halls. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat. If you don't, great. That means we were pretty thorough. But all right, we'll talk to you in a minute.